Hello and welcome to this live stream. Today is the first in a three-part series where we'll be talking to our Tableau Ambassadors. So we're starting this week with Tableau Public. My name's Steph Kearns and I'm your host today. I'm a Tableau and Alteryx consultant at the Information Lab, and I'm excited to be joined today by Lorna, Ravi and Soha. So they are 3 of 8 Tableau Public Ambassadors that we have as part of the Information Lab or our alumni. So it's great to have them here with us today. These are their social, their Twitter handles if you want to give them a follow, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see their wonderful faces. And I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. So we're going to dive straight in, and I'm going to start with you, Ravi. So can you kick us off by introducing yourself? Tell us when you first started using Tableau, how long you've used it for, and the version, if you remember it.
Yeah, no, it's so yeah. Hi, I'm Ravi. I work for a company called the City Football Group, where I've been there since June, actually, when I left the Information Lab. I've used Tableau for 5 years now, and I'm very much in what you'd say is my dream career, given that I started using Tableau to analyze football data from the public, using Tableau Public in 2015. I think it was February 2015 that I first started playing with Tableau. I was using Excel as a database, which is everyone's favorite database, of course, as we found out here in the UK last week. So yeah, I started with Tableau 9.0. It was just after 9.0 came out, I think. So story points were new, bubble charts are brand new and controversial, as were tree maps. So yeah, I started on 9.0, and my journey sort of has taken me from playing around with Tableau as a hobby to supplement my blog on Tableau using Tableau Public. Then joined the Information Lab's data school as part of cohort 1. So that was June 2015 that I joined there, and I left the Information Lab at the end of May to start my new job at City as a football intelligence manager. So yeah, it's been quite a ride now. Like I said, Tableau Public is such a cornerstone and core part of sort of my building blocks into my career.
So you're old school on a couple of counts in the version and the data school cohort as well, one of the OGs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Soha, what about you?
So it's roughly been like nearly 3 years now. I think, yeah, around 3 years. And version I used was 2018. So that was before set actions, parameter actions, spatial calculations. The struggle back then was real.
Yeah, but you don't miss that old version.
No, definitely not. I think things are a lot more dynamic and easier now than back then, and some of the hacks that you had to do 3 years ago, you definitely didn't have to do now. Similar to Ravi as well, joined DS. I'm cohort number 9, actually leaving in a week. So yeah, this is my last week. So it's a weird timing as well with everything, but all good stuff.
Nice. And Lorna, last but not least.
So I also started around 2015, so I was slightly behind Ravi, but I think I started on version 8, and it was pre-level of detail calculations. So yeah. Imagine a day when you don't ever use level of details. So yeah, version 9 was a blessing. But I started using Tableau when I was on my placement with British Gymnastics. So I saw it with coaches and athletes and understanding how it was used in the real world. I then joined the data school in December 2015, and today was actually my interview day to get into data school number 2. So yeah, it's been a great journey. I left the data school 2 years later, did some other jobs in between, and now I'm back with the Information Lab. And also this year, myself and Ravi got pronounced to Zen Master as well. So that's an amazing achievement for both of us, I think.
Nice, yeah, definitely a really, really big achievement, that one. So it's really great to have you all with us today. So I'm looking forward to hearing kind of more about what you've got to say. So we've got some questions lined up, but if you're watching on YouTube, then feel free to drop some questions in the chat as well, and we'll try and try and get to those as well. So yeah, say hi if you're watching. So first question, should we get going, dive straight in? So first up, Soha, can you tell us a little bit more about what being an ambassador means to you and kind of the best bit about it?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this question and the answer to it, because the whole thing was very an unexpected surprise for me. So I guess like the one thing is like definitely grateful for the recognition and the fact that people even thought to nominate me. And I mean, it goes back to similar like how I even use Tableau and Tableau Public, is that it allows me to highlight the stories that I really care about. And that's how I choose to use the platform, not only Tableau Public, but also how I choose to communicate with people in the community, is that it lets me, you know, spread awareness about some of the stuff that's happening in the world that right now that we're seeing, and also be able to just have a bigger pool of people that are accessing the kind of work that I'm doing and learning from what it is that I'm doing. And then also at the same time, you get to learn from each other, which is a really invaluable thing about the community. And I think it's the most, like the biggest selling point about the community. And to be part of that group of people where we're not only like recognized for the stuff that we do and our contributions towards the community, but we also like learn from each other. So I don't think that ever stops, no matter what kind of title you're assigned or what kind of recognition you get. But yeah, that's kind of how I see it as.
Nice. Ravi, do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was part of the first group of public ambassadors. I think it was back in 2017 when they first announced it as a program. And I think that back then it was very much along the lines of what Soha's just gone through, where the idea is to evangelize and share what we love so much about Tableau Public and be that sort of person to showcase what's possible with it, and also the sort of reasoning and understanding not just Tableau Public but the community at large. For me, the best part of being an ambassador is not just, as Soha said, the learning experience of sharing back and then also learning from my peers and everyone else in the Tableau community, but also just mainly trying to showcase and trying to direct and give my feedback to people that work at Tableau. So the community team at Tableau are really, really progressive. They're always open to listening to the voices of the community at large, as well as the ambassadors, and working closely with them on different, be it blog posts or campaigns or evangelizing the good things that they're doing. Has been really, really good fun and really rewarding over the last 3 or 4 years.
Nice. Yeah, so the ambassador program's kind of been around a couple of years, but so Tableau Public recently had its 10th birthday, which is pretty special. So what is it? It's obviously a very popular platform. What is it that you think makes it unique, Lorna?
Yeah, I think it's just a really, really unique platform for sharing those visualizations. It allows people to bank up a lot of favorites that other people have built so that you can reference them for either learning or just because you really like their design. And it also allows you to share other people's work as well, whereas you might not be able to notice that throughout like Twitter or the forums. You might not be able to find those particular people, whereas on the gallery and the Tableau Public, you can find all of those amazing visualizations with Viz of the Day and the gallery itself, so that you can have those sports examples or the industry specific examples. So yeah, I think it's a great platform for people to share their work on, and I encourage everyone to start using it.
Nice. Is there anything, Soha, anything else that you think makes it a unique platform to share your work?
I think it's also the fact that not only are you able to, just like what Lorna mentioned, favorite people's work, which I always end up going back to my favorites and looking at like what other people have done and stuff like that, but also you're able to look behind the hood at some of your, you know, the pieces of work that you're like, wow, I want to figure out how they built this or how they approached this. And I think that's what's great about Tableau Public, that then you're able to download someone's work and get an understanding of what their data structure was to let them build something like that, or what calculations they used. And that in itself is also like you learning directly from someone's work. And that is very invaluable, because from that you're just progressing further and further. Or you may see something about someone's work. I mean, I know there's some, like, not even just based on calculations or chart types, but like design styles. Like a lot of Juliette's work, when she first started out, her stuff was very different to what other people were using and how other people were visualizing stuff in Tableau. I mean, that in itself, I know, has inspired so many people to start looking at bringing in like features of Adobe and artwork into their Tableau visualization. So it's not just you're learning things from a technical point of view, but you're gaining a better understanding of what data visualization as a topic is, outside of just, you know, either the coding behind it or the technical language behind it, but just more like, how is it that you get people to really want to look at your work and really engage with it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. The inspiration side, I think, is a really big part of it. Ravi, is there something in particular that you enjoy about the platform, or is it just?
Yeah, I think Sohail's nailed it, really. It's such a great learning platform for so many people, and for me, that ability to look under the hood. I think there was a new feature that was announced, I think, earlier on this year, called Explorer Viz, which allows you to actually, within the web interface, dig into someone else's visualization. And I always encourage almost everyone who's building and sharing their work on Tableau Public to leave that viz unlocked so that everyone else can look under the hood. I think one of the best pieces of advice I had received was the best way to learn and sort of get really good at understanding how other people are good at Tableau, because it's always quite intimidating to see what other people are doing, is just download it, delete all of the sheets, and then try and rebuild it side by side, pixel for pixel. Because I think that's a really unique thing you can do with Tableau that allows you to, I always talk about instant gratification with Tableau. Like when you drag something on, you see something come back. Whereas with like code-based platforms, it's very, you sort of type and then you press run or save and you hope for the best. Whereas you get some sort of gratification with something come back and you start to explore your data. And similarly with Tableau Public, you're able to download someone else's work and start unpicking it that way as well.
Something else that Sohail you brought up was the inspiration and using it as a source of inspiration. How do you go about that and using it as inspiration?
I mean, for me, I think it really just goes down to really critically think about what it is that you liked about that person's work. So if I saw a visualization and I was like, I really like this is something that I find amazing. How did they do it? And it's not just about how they did it. It's like, what is it about that work that I'm seeing that really caught my attention and made me really like it? And I think that's something that you have to learn. I guess when it comes to how you're thinking about data visualization, it's not just about recognizing, oh, I love this piece of work, let me favorite it. But it's also about what is it about that person's work that really caught your attention, that's really inspiring towards you? Is it the use of their colors? Is it their structure? Is it the layout? Is it the chart types? Is it the images, the font? I mean, I know me personally, I didn't really start paying attention to the kind of font styles that I was using or highlighting different words until I saw someone do it really well with their visualization. And it kind of started to get me thinking about, okay, maybe this is something that I can start incorporating in my own work. And it can be something small like that that gets you start looking at your own work and start looking at data visualization quite differently.
Ravi, do you do a similar thing, or is there anything else that you would?
So I have a Pinterest, right? So I always
I have the same.
Yeah, so it's great using stuff like Pinterest and other tools to just save stuff that you like. I think this word inspiration is the nice way of saying stealing. Just taking the good bits you like from other people's work, which is great, which is what all artists have done from the beginning of time. And for me, using elements of everyone else's work, like maybe I'll see a little button that Sohail's used, or maybe there's a funky little trick that Lorna's used. It's those little pieces that you can pull together to make your own unique thing and call it your own. I think that's really what I take as inspiration. And as we mentioned before, like using the favorites function and using bits and pieces that you like, and then being able to download it and take it apart to. For me, I use a lot of third-party tools to get colors. And as Soha said, like there's so many little parts of visualization that you can start to consider. And all of that comes through as a process, I think.
So something Ravi, you said before, was you just encourage people to download it and try it. Like Lorna, do you have any other advice of how people can get started?
Yeah, so definitely just start by creating a Tableau Public profile and start following some of the authors that are on there and start favoriting some vizzes. Tableau release Viz of the Day every day so that you can get some daily dose of inspiration. And they also release featured authors once a month. So start by following all of those people because they are producing some incredible work at the moment and always have done. So it'll start to build up that profile. And when you have a new profile, you have an activity feed in the top right, which then allows you to see what they're posting and also what they're favoriting. And that is a key point of the Tableau Public profile. But to get started in publishing a Tableau Public viz, I'd just say just do it. Find something you're interested in, a topic, a data set, and just visualize it and publish it. You can ask for feedback from the community. We don't bite. We're always happy to give some feedback if you ask us. And also there's community projects like Makeover Monday, for example. That is a good project to get you started with data visualization and publishing to Tableau Public.
I think just to jump in there, like the biggest benefit for me from Makeover Monday and other community projects like that is that there's curated data sources ready to go, right? So when you go into Tableau Public, there are set data sources. You'll find the Titanic one, you'll find the Pokemon one. But to find out a really diverse range of data sources, but then also the sorts of work people have created off the back of those, it's always good to go back to the back catalogue of, Makeover Monday data sources, start from scratch. I think a lot of people have this question of, where do you find data? Where do you come up with ideas? And really, it comes up with just a question. It comes up with a question. It comes up with a data set and exploring and finding the stories within the data. I think certainly all of us can testify to there's always something in there that will capture your interest if you have a vested interest. And I think Lorna's point on picking something that you're quite interested in, something that you've got like a tangible theory about. So for me, that was always sports visualizations and football. So I would just grab some football data, have a question in mind, have a preconception, and then use data to prove or disprove it. And I think over time you develop almost methods in your madness. Like you come up with, this is what I'm going to start with, or I'll start with thinking with design first. I know, so you're very design focused. What sort of thing do you start with when you're opening Tableau with that blank workbook in front of you?
I don't even start with Tableau at all. I go way back. I think, just like Lorna and Ravi saying, I started off with Makeover Monday just to get a start and a feel. And then I started, I guess, like having conversations with people about certain topics that I was really interested in. And then that's when I started digging out to see, like, look, can I find data on this topic? I'm really interested in it. And then when I'd find the data, I wouldn't even think about design. It's more like, let me see what I can find in there. So I go way back, data exploration. And once I have a feel of what kind of answers I can question with the data set, or what answers I'm not able to answer from that data set, I then just start sketching out what it is that I want to do with it. And it just starts off with a lot of just rough stuff, just figuring out how it is as I go along. And then sometimes when I start building out what I planned in Tableau, it doesn't look the way I planned it to. And then I'll just end up just scrapping it all over again and just be like, okay, I need to like think of something else. This is not shaping out how I want it to be. It's not the right way to portray this information. I mean, you don't get it right from the first time round. You don't look at a piece of data set and you're like, oh yeah, I've got this amazing design idea. This is exactly going to work out how I want it to be. I mean, sometimes I'll spend weeks on just this one data set, just figuring it out, like, how am I going to show this information? What's the best way to go about it?
I think that's one of the biggest benefits, right? You can fail really fast.
Yeah.
Like you just can fail, then delete everything and start again. And you don't feel like you've lost a ream of code or you've lost X, Y, and Z. You can just start again. and find a different angle to pivot to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess it always goes down to the whole idea. Like, I think you should just really find what it is that you're passionate about. Just like Ravi said, he's passionate about sports. I was never interested in sports data. When I looked at it, I was just like, I can't do this. I don't understand it. I don't want to understand it. Not for me at all. So I just found something that just worked for me.
How many unfinished vizzes do you have? Do you have like a bank of them that you just haven't ever got around to finishing?
I have a folder called the graveyard on my desktop. And it's always on my desktop, and it gets moved into another folder that's called desktop, and then you start nesting outwards. But so many. Sometimes I go for the cheesecake principle, where you start a viz and then you just got to let it chill. But sometimes they just go really, really cold and just never get touched again.
Yeah, I have the same sort of personal projects folder that I've just got a bank of lots of different ideas, and I have a noteboard that just says, okay, I want to do this data, and then they just kind of go to die sometimes, but most of the time something does come to fruition. But I focus more on getting tips out there and getting those simple visualizations out rather than the big design pieces that Soha likes to do.
Oh no, I've got so many that have died a tragic death. I've got like a list of ideas as well. So I can sometimes be a bit OCD, and I have a list of projects and ideas that I want to start off with. And then sometimes, it will die at the data stage where I'm just like, I can't even find the data for this topic. So you're dead. And then even after that, it just might not even come to fruition because something about it isn't working, or I guess like inspiration hasn't struck. And my style of inspiration, which I think a lot of people don't realize, is that I procrastinate to death until like the perfect idea just comes to me, and then I'm like, yes, this is it. Yeah. And that's kind of the style and the way I go about things. It's more like, it'll come to me when it comes to me, and this is the process. And sometimes I'll spend just days on end binge watching, just in the back of my head. Yeah. I'm like thinking of my viz idea, but I'm like, it's not meant to be because inspiration hasn't come yet, and it will just die. Or sometimes it will, get resuscitated, and then you'll see it out there.
I think the other thing that it's easy to forget about the graveyard is there's some good stuff in there. And there's always something, you start doing something like an element of a viz that might be really good, or a calculation you've written that you might then reuse. And I've had that so many times where either like Lorna, I've turned it into a tip which I've blogged about, and my blog turns out to be my notepad because I'm forgetful. So if I write it on my blog, it's somewhere I can point to. But it's always those small little elements that you do in order to get to another point. And they're always good worth referring to. To the inspiration piece, I think it was Picasso that said inspiration exists, but it has to find you working. And I think it's one of those things where it has to be a process for you to continue before you get to that end.
Something which we've all heard from Coach Andy a number of times at the data school is that you should never delete a viz off your Tableau Public. So why do you think that is? And have you ever deleted one, Lorna?
I always keep all of my visualizations on there. I might hide a few, but never delete. So yeah, you can hide visits on your Tableau Public page. And mainly that's just because they're either work in progress and I want to share it with people for feedback, and I'm not ready to release it to the rest of the Tableau Public community at the moment. But other than that, I do try and keep most of my visualizations, and that's mainly to show progress, really. If I go back to my early days, I just cringe inside because some of them design choices and best practice are not there. So I'd probably remake a lot of my old stuff, but it just shows progression, and I've reached over 100 visualizations on my Tableau Public now, so it was great to actually achieve that. So yeah.
Thanks. What are you, Ravi?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite tasks whenever I'm doing training or chatting to someone who's just getting started is just like, let's not look at the World Cup viz. If you go all the way to the bottom, you'll find a scatter plot of me getting really excited with trend lines and the fact I can add annotations. right? And then I'll go to my data school interview viz. I think I was chatting to someone who's just joined last week or earlier on this week, and we went through that, and I was like, look, you might be like, oh, there's so much on here. It's like, well, actually go all the way to the bottom to like compare where you are at the beginning of your journey versus where I was, and you'll see that progression exists. And I think for my interview viz, there's so many things wrong with it. Like I've got time on the y-axis, no idea why I did that. The third tab in a story point is like Elmo's patchwork quilt. Well, I've used to use the Tableau 25 and then let it repeat because there's like 200 films in this data source. And then I've got a red-green color palette. The first two vizzes are the same thing, and it's easy to go back and critique. And one of the things it's really easy to do, and you know, if you're comfortable doing it, I found with when I'm speaking about Tableau and sort of teaching those data viz principles we've talked about so far, is just going back and be like, look, here's one of my piece of work, tear it to shreds, please, because there's so much wrong with that early piece. Now, I also echo what Lorna said in that progression. I think what's really great about the progression is you want to see the experimental phases in your life. I'm not talking about university. I'm talking about like the different elements where you're trying parameters and you're trying different color schemes. You're trying long form or wide form, or you're trying like text heavy. You're trying like a Sankey chart, and then you sort of almost start to settle into, I know the things that are in my toolbox, and this is how I'm going to approach a different problem. And again, like so I said, what ends up happening is you start something, you'll think about some data in the back of your mind while you're binging Netflix, and then something will hit you, you'll draw something or write something down. I think that's where all of these things start pulling together, and I think that's what I talk about when we talk about the journey of the Tableau Public portfolio. Would love it if you could organize it better though.
What do you have like a favorite viz on your profile if you go back kind of back in the archives?
I'll start with this one. Mine's always my World Cup viz. I think that was such a labor of love. When I talk about that one, it's accumulation of, it's my favorite one because it's the one I put a lot of effort into to try and make it as real time as possible, and B, because it was something I'd always wanted to do, like having a match report viz that was like going beyond the box and do all these different things. And suddenly had this opportunity with the World Cup of 2018 to build something. It was literally after the first match. I was like, what if I just did this for one match? And then it almost became like a ritual, whereas, you know, in the 20 minutes or 15-minute break between matches, I would go copy and paste loads of data to a Google Sheet, press refresh, and then change it. And for me, that was just a labor of love. And it was so good to see the positive feedback from the rest of the community and to use it to this day. And like, because there's so many little elements and tricks I used within that. So that's my favorite personally.
Yeah, I have a favorite that it's quite an old one now. So the features that I did do could probably be refreshed and done in a better way now. But it was my friend's Iron Viz that I entered, where I analysed the scripts of all the seasons of Friends and turned it into like its own little book, so you could click on a page and it would kind of flip over. So animations would make that incredible, and also buttons would make that so much better nowadays. But yeah, I think that's still one of my favorite visualizations that I ever built. But again, it was a labor of love, and by the time I'd finished it, I didn't really want to see it again.
Was that one where you used the URL actions trick that used to exist to get the navigation to work?
Yeah, I think so.
Yikes.
There'll be so many little hacks and changes that you could do now if you went back and tried to redo it. What about you, Soha? Have you got a favorite?
I think my favorite one has to be the one that I did looking at the different races that astronauts came from, and I have a network chart. Yeah, because initially when I saw this data set, I was going to approach it completely differently, and I was like, no, I wanted to do it this way. And then with the network chart, it worked out, and I had a deep fascination with like space and wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid. So it was, yeah, I really liked it. And then I think the one after that had to be my Lebanon viz that I did collaboratively with Fred, but for completely different reasons. And both of them, I spent a really long time thinking about how I wanted to approach things, a lot more than actually sourcing the data or even building stuff. Like majority of the time was just more about how do I want things to fit? How do I want it to look? You know, it was like a lot more obvious with my astronaut biz because I wanted the feel of space and I wanted it to look like stars. And I spent so long trying to find the right kind of shades and color because I was like, this needs to work and look the way I want it to work.
Nice, some 3 great vizzes there. So you've all kind of said a little bit about like the way you use Tableau Public, you favourite a lot of vizzes and things like that. Do you have any idea how many you've favorited over time? Or no idea, just tons?
I think I have over 200, something like that.
Wow, that's something you need to be able to like group. And
it does say in your public, when you go onto your profile, I think it tells you how many you've got in brackets, so you can at least see. I personally haven't used it that much, but I'm definitely going to be starting to make sure I'm favoriting a lot more vizzes when I see them, because I see so many fantastic vizzes and I just forget to sign in and then favorite them and then remember a week later like, oh, what was that viz again? So yeah, I'm my own worst enemy with that.
Yeah, I'm similar to Laura, but mine's almost like my favorites with purpose because I use Pinterest so heavily to save images, and that also saves a link. I've never really used the favoriting for that purpose, but where I do use it is, or I have used it, is for learning, when I'm teaching Tableau, and I'll talk about Tableau Public, then I'll hop over to my favorites and then go through a few of the examples to showcase the range. I think that's one of my favorite things about Tableau Public. Like, you've got the business dashboards, but you've also got, the really beautifully designed ones. You've really always got the ones where people are trying out different colors and elements and modes and so many crazy things. And then you've got, the master workbooks of calcs and things like this that are just such great, useful resources for people to just download and use.
Yeah, definitely. You've all we've touched on inspiration and where you get ideas for your vizzes, kind of starting with a passion like sports or something like that, and then going from there and kind of having an idea sparked. Where, is there any other ways that you find ideas or data for your visualizations, and kind of any other tools that you use as part of your process? Ravi, do you want to?
Yeah, I can hop in there. I think there's one. I think my current pinned Tableau Public viz is one about the EU 28. So I study economics at university, so I've got some level of interest still in economics. I think this is one where, again, a somewhat labor of love because there's no real easy way to find accurate quarterly GDP statistics that isn't Eurostat and that's consistent. So I was basically pulling from a PDF as well as from Eurostat, as well as from a table, and then trying to get the format correctly. But I think that one was triggered purely through a viz where, a news article. So I started a news article, scrolled down, and then the data source, went to that data source, and then started then work my way backwards to finding out and then supplementing that data with something I was interested in. I think the second one I wanted to mention was there's one about sweltering on the tube. And I was talking about that as a really good analysis piece because it started with a question where I was on the Metropolitan line in the middle of summer and melting. And I was like, actually, this isn't too bad because there's a bit that's overground and I can open the windows. Then I got thinking, what's the worst tube line to be stuck on in the middle of summer? So I was like, there's surely some data for that. Found some data, like a Metro article on the tube, called BS on it because I didn't think it was exactly correct because it said the Bakerloo line was the hottest. The reason for that is the depth is the one that goes the deepest underground. And then I was like, well, what else makes you hot? People. And then the central line feels the hottest because it's quite fairly deep underground, but there's so many people that go on that line. So that's a sort of approach I take. And generally it's just Googling tube line heat data and then going from there.
Yeah, I'm the same with that. Whenever I get an idea into my head, I just kind of search the topic and then put data at the end of it, or database, and then try and find something that's along those sort of lines. But you need to make sure you're a bit specific on those. But again, with Pinterest, I always say my topic and then put like infographic at the end of it, so then you can try and find some other inspiration on those ideas on Pinterest as well. Like yesterday I had a Grease song in my head, so it started a project. Now whether this comes to fruition is a different story, but on the Grease songs and how they change through like the tempos and things like that throughout the musical itself. So watch this space, but that is using Spotify data.
You've said it now. Now you have to do it.
I know, right?
Got witnesses.
Yeah, you put it out there in the universe. So I would also recommend looking at like Behance. So sometimes I'll look at Behance as well. I do a lot of what Lorna described, where I'll put the topic in and then I'll write data. Also, another thing that I'd recommend is Pudding.cool. They create these amazing data visualization essays, and they'll also write a lot of articles about their process and how they come up with ideas and what ideas end up coming to fruition versus what ideas end up going to the graveyard, as Ravi put it. And I found that in itself was really interesting. Medium also has like a huge community of data visualization people out there, and you read the stuff they do and it's amazing. And it's also really inspirational. You've also got people outside of the Tableau community. So I definitely recommend that if people are interested, not just in Tableau, but in data visualization as a topic, to also don't restrict yourself just looking at what people in Tableau are doing. Broaden that out and look at what other people are doing in the field. Like Nadia Bremer, she's always coming out with amazing content that's so inspirational. Definitely check her out. Same thing as well, you see a lot of stuff by Mona Chalby. She does a lot of stuff that's on an illustrative basis, like it's more artwork, but the kind of visualizations that she creates are so impactful. So I definitely encourage people to look outside of Tableau as well, not just within the community.
Yeah, I think those principles that you mentioned are so important, like Mona Chalabi and Nadia are great places to start. Andy Kirk, of course, who's done some great blogs and vizzes. But I think for me, my data viz journey started with almost the three granddaddies, right? You've got Stephen Few, Edward Tufte, and Alberto Cairo were the first like pillars of data visualization community that I read through and sort of went through their blogs. And I always find the most interesting thing about Stephen Few's blog is the comments. Because that's like you just see people speaking about the different reasons for chart types and the objective thoughts and feedback and feelings. And I always think that that's a really good discussion to follow along personally. So that's all good. But yeah, absolutely. Second, looking outside the space and then looking into like things like design and interfaces and UX, just to understand a bit more about what's possible.
Nice. And some really good recommendations there. I've got a question kind of on the recommendation line in the YouTube chat. So been asked, what platforms do you use for your personal blogs?
I use WordPress. I find it relatively easy to use. I think I don't pay for my domain or my plan, but I do plan to, as it gives you a little bit more design styles. But other than that, WordPress is relatively easy to use, and you can just type away and add vizzes and add images and things like that into it. So for me, it's WordPress.
I'm a nomad. I've bounced around a bunch of different platforms. So I started off in WordPress with my football blog, then moved to Blogspot for a bit, which was fun. And I think most recently I moved into GitHub, which takes a little bit more work, but it loads a lot faster and there's a lot more control you can have. And I've really enjoyed that as an interface. So GitHub for blogs has been quite good. I think Anya Prositova from the Data School wrote a really good blog about getting started in setting up a blog using things like Ruby. Again, that's more code-based bit if you want to be manual like me, because I'm lazy and don't want to learn how to use Ruby and command line stuff. I'm just like, I'll just write something in Markdown, save as Markdown, put it in my GitHub repository, and within a minute or less than a minute it's there. Then you can add in like things like Google Analytics cookies and things like that. So that's what I'm using currently, and I think I'm going to stick to that moving forward as well.
Cool. So obviously, like we've spoken a lot about kind of the sheer volume of stuff on Tableau Public and being able to pick it apart and things like that. You've all obviously got loads of really great vizzes on your profiles too. Soha, is like, do you get nervous about posting your vizzes?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think you ever not get nervous. I think for me also the issue stems down from like an ethical point of view a lot. So recently I've been thinking a lot about the ethics behind data visualization, especially since a lot of the topics I'm doing really fall under that bracket where there are real people behind the topics that I'm choosing to visualize. So recently I did a visualization around the police brutality in the US against African Americans, and you start to think about visualization from a completely different point of view as well. And it's about the content that you're writing. I don't want to offend anyone. I want to make sure that I'm approaching this in a very empathetic, humanized way. So, I mean, it's definitely quite nerve-wracking because also you don't want to offend anyone, you don't want to hurt anyone, and especially since a lot of the visualizations that I'm doing, the stories behind it, there's real pain. Like when Fred and I were creating the Lebanon viz, a lot of the time we kept going back to talking about, are we doing this in a way that's good enough for the people that it's representing? Like, I know people who are from Beirut, I know people who were impacted by the explosion that happened. And so it like really hits home, like this isn't just a bunch of numbers that I'm choosing, oh, what's the best practice way to visualize? It's more about, okay, is this done in a way that's got empathy? So what I do a lot of the time is that I'll like test it out, and I'd encourage people to do that. So I'll definitely reach out to people in my circle, people who know more about the topic than I do. I'll do my research, I'll do my reading, make sure that I don't have any kind of inaccuracies, that I'm not labeling people with the wrong word, with the wrong name. After I make sure I've done that kind of research, I do end up sending out my viz to some people in my circle who may know more about this than me, for example, and then be like, would you mind looking at this and giving me feedback and making sure that this is okay before I choose to just send it out to the public? So yeah, I mean, like for me, it's quite nerve-wracking, but then at the same time, it's like, I need to make sure that this is going to be okay, at least. I mean, it's not about it being the best viz, it's more about it being something that, I mean, can do justice towards the topic that I chose to visualize.
Right.
Yeah, that's a really powerful point. I think the ethics behind the visualization is so important. I think it's easy to visualize something as a one and done and just sort of push out there and not think about it. And I think it's really conscientious to consider not just the people behind the visualizations, but the impact it has, because it's really, because we are designing information to be more easily understood, it's very easy to take shortcuts within something like that. And data ethics in general is such an expansive topic that it could take another webinar and of itself. I think that's exactly it. For me personally, in terms of pushing content out and being nervous about it, I haven't recently hit on anything that's been such a powerful topic as some of the topics that you've tackled so hard. But what I've found is that nervousness never goes away. Like there is that moment where you put it out on either social media or onto a public, and then you sort of sit there refreshing, like expecting someone to come in with an axe being like, what the hell did you just do? But in reality, it's what you'll get is feedback. What you'll get is thoughts. You'll get people being inspired by your work and things like this. And I think the thing that I'm most nervous about is always spelling errors or data errors, right? Like for example, like I've just made a rookie error in a viz, and I need to delete the tweet and social media posts and repost it after I've edited it. That's the only thing, which is trivial compared to what you've just said.
No, I completely agree with you. I've had moments where I've published something and someone will message me and be like, by the way, you have a spelling mistake. And I'm just like, when will spell check come into Tableau? Like, I need it. I need you. But I mean, I agree. I think you're never going to stop being nervous because it's not just work that you've spent time on. It's personal work that you've chosen to spend your free time on. And people are judging you for it. Like, I'm always really nervous about it. It's judgment. You're never not going to not feel nervous about it.
Yeah, I was going to say I completely agree with everything, and getting those nerves are definitely more around when you have an impactful visualization. So putting the human behind the data. The nerves do kind of go away when you're using Superstore sales or something that you know isn't necessarily directly related to another human being. And that's where my nerves kind of go a little bit, is when I'm publishing those type of visualizations. So yeah, I think just put it out there and always ask for feedback before. Maybe use the hide function as well to make sure that your visualizations are hidden before you're ready to let them out into the world.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the point you made, Sarah, about having your people that you can bounce ideas off and get feedback from before you go live is really important in, I guess, just life, not just visualizations, right?
Very profound, Ravi. I like it. So in that, Soha, you said you really want spell check, and there's been a few other things that you kind of mentioned as we've gone along this evening about things that you want to see in Tableau Public. So kind of something that I'd like to hear from all of you really is what would you like to see in the future of Tableau Public?
I'm happy to go first on that one. I would really love to see an app so that I can use it on the go on my, not that we're on the go at the moment, but in the future, so that I can use it more on the go and it can keep me logged in, and so that I can go through and find those visualizations on my phone a lot easier than going to the website and doing it that way. But collections, so that I can put my visualizations into certain things as to, this is why I favorited this viz, so for learning or for design or this topic. And the new feature, which was hashtags and inspiration, has been a big help and it's come a long way since the beginning of Tableau. So I just want it to just keep going and getting better and better. The only way is up, right?
Avi, do you have any particular wishes?
No, so you go next, because I've got an entire tirade to go through here.
Oh wow, okay, we'll save that then.
I guess I definitely want spell check. I want spell check. Please get me spell check. Can't emphasize that enough. It's like, doesn't even need to be like spell check in the charts, but at least can we get it in the text box? That would be a great first step. I'd also want the ability, just like Lorna said, to sort my favorites. I have so many. And I'll spend like hours just scrolling through it. And I'm just like, I want to be able to find this one specific viz that I know I favorited, but I can't because I need to scroll through the entire thing to try and find it. So the ability to just sort your favorites, I think, would just be amazing. Also, I think it's quite difficult when you end up creating a collab project with someone. So there's no co-author option, which it makes it quite difficult, because then you end up, I guess, like attributing that person either like in the inspirations, and then both of you guys visualize, both of you guys publish the visualization, and then also you write it down. But it would be great if there was a co-author option as well. And just because Tableau prides itself in being a collaborative tool, but with Tableau Public, if you are collaborating with someone, it's quite difficult to even, I guess, also like have a fair distribution of like the views and all that stuff. And it might seem quite, unbalanced, because it's one person's viz that ends up generating the most amount of views and the most amount of, I guess, default from that kind of, what was I going to say, credit. But yeah, I mean, I think it would be nice if Tableau just made it a lot easier to collaborate with other people, and just have that sharing space that you're seeing on Twitter to also be available in Tableau Public, because you're not seeing that at all right now. I guess that's it from me. So Ravi.
That is the perfect segue for you to end on, by the way. I've got this blog in draft right now, which I started a series called Imagine If, and I think I've done a couple of already. Like, I thought about the profile layer, and I talked about the Tableau Truff and things like this. My big thing about Tableau Public is it has so much potential. It genuinely has. It can become the core product of Tableau, and I don't think, you know, this is such a valuable resource. So for me, there's a bunch of things. So to echo everything that Lorna and Soha both said, in terms of having that social element and that collaborative platform, Tableau Public isn't there yet, and you know, it could be. It has so much potential to be. Now, for me, it has to start with the holistic experience. Now, the core purpose, for anyone who speaks to, who evangelizes about Tableau Public, the core purpose is learning. So why not make Tableau Public the place to start with learning, right? So when I think about Tableau Public, I think about when you start learning R or Python in any coding language, you have that sort of start where you go, hello world, and then you do all the same thing in 3 different languages. What if there was that thing on Tableau Public where you open up Tableau Public profile, and the first thing it shows you is a guided tour of what's around you, how to favorite a viz, here's some of the viz of the day, subscribe, all of these things. You're stepped through and taken through a bunch of redirect processes. And then the first thing you do isn't download Tableau Public, but you open it in the browser, and then the browser talks you through a step-by-step section where you're building a viz. And that same viz is like Tom from MySpace, who's everyone's friend, right? Everyone has that same starting point, and you call it Hello Viz, right? And it's your first ever viz, and it's there forever. Now imagine that as your starting point. And then on top of that, layer on everything that Soha and Lorna have said, where you're collaborating, you know, you're able to comment more richly. Perhaps you're able to use like GitHub-esque forking and collaboration, where you're sharing the view count and all of these things. I'm like throwing all these out as if it's easy and like it's completely simple to remap an entire website. But I'm just thinking of this as a holistic collaborative experience, because the thing that, and then the final thing that Tableau could do and really become the place for starting with anything in data visualization, because of the low barrier to entry, is curating data sources. And this is where you get the case for Prep Public come through, and Carl Altscher is probably just raising his arms at this. But imagine if you're able to curate, collect, and have almost like an app store for data sources that's basically data.world, but within Tableau for you to directly connect to, and then build a viz in the browser, and then also see every other viz that's been created linked to that data source. Like, imagine all of these different wild things that you can start doing when you're collaborating on this one single platform. That's me done.
That's a pretty powerful thing right there, Ravi. Mind blown if Tableau Public could pull that off.
If you don't ask, you don't get, right? So
no, this is it. Like I said, there'll be a blog one day. It's currently in the halfway to the graveyard, but
I'm looking forward to it.
That's what I'm thinking.
Nice. There's some good things that hopefully come at some point. Tableau Public in amongst all of that. We've had one more question in the live chat before we kind of start to wrap up. So I think we've kind of covered this, but what are some great sources of curated data sets? So we've kind of had some things mentioned, maybe not the data sets specifically, but kind of areas that you'd find data sets. Anyone got any particular go-tos for data sets?
Data.world has got lots of different data sets on. Kaggle as well, that's another data set place. I think Google have released one as well, so that you can do a Google data search, and then that'll come up with different data sets as well.
Another good place is just search on Reddit. Like, Reddit has like a massive list of data sources. Like, I think there's a master post somewhere. But if you, I mean, again, like we talked about Google earlier, being like, just put subject type data or subject type database. Even just putting in list of data sources or list of databases, this is such a common question. I think, Soha, do you remember that there was that newsletter you signed up for where you get a data set every week or something? Is that still happening?
No, but I did end up putting together a Google Doc with like a whole bunch of links of different data sources, because I might as well just put it out there in the public. I think what I've also done is, like, when I can't find a specific data source, I'll just search for an infographic about the topic that I want. And then in the info part of it, they'll always include like a list of data sources that they've used. So then from that, I'll then end up finding the data set that I wanted, because sometimes it's not an A to B kind of like situation. So, or if I see a viz and I just really am interested in the data set, I'll be like, where did they get their data set from? And I'll just dig around for it. So I'd also recommend people looking that way. Census data, the government, any kind of government data, it's so easy to find, like the US, the UK as well. They have, their data is very readily accessible and it's quite easy to get a hold of and see that kind of information and stuff. There are some topics that are just more tougher than others. Also, it depends on, I guess, like certain countries as well. Some of their data sets isn't that accessible. I know with the UK and the US, it's very, very accessible. It's really easy to find US data.
That's great. Great list there. Thank you, everyone. So we're kind of running low on time. What I'd like to do is end with some quick fire questions. So we've got a little list, quick fire questions. All I'm looking for is a one word. Ravi, you're going to have to hold yourself back from elaborating too much on these because we haven't got time. So you ready? Ready?
What order are we going in? What order are we going in?
Should we go Lorna, Ravi, Soha, each of them?
Okay.
Ready? Tiled or floating?
Tiled.
Tiled.
Both. I'm sorry.
Great start. Really strong start.
I'm sorry.
LOD or table calc?
LOD.
LOT.
LOD.
Makeover Monday or Workout Wednesday?
Workout Wednesday, obviously.
Yeah, Workout Wednesday. I feel like I'm the brainchild.
I guess I'm going to be the outlier again. Makeover Monday.
Nice. Pie chart, yay or nay?
It depends.
Yes.
Ooh.
Depends.
Nice. Light or dark dashboards?
Dark.
Dark.
It depends. Why aren't you guys on the
I feel
same
like you don't
wavelength
get
as
the
me?
game. You don't get the game. Scrolly or not scrolly dashboards?
It depends.
No.
Scrolly.
No scroll. Scrolly. Okay, split board there. Static first or interactive first?
Interactive.
Static.
Oh, it depends.
Don't do it.
Sorry.
Oh, it's like the little catchphrase, isn't it? But well, there we go. We'll end on that one. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really good to hear from you. I found it really interesting to hear everything you've spoken about. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you for asking some questions. So next Tuesday we're back. It's the second of these discussions with Tableau Ambassadors. So next week is with the Data Dev Ambassadors. So we've got 3 of them joining us. That's Andre, Anya and Lane. So it's a brand new category. And so, yeah, it'll be really exciting to hear more about the category as a whole, as well as about them in particular. So you can sign up on our meetup. Yeah, brand new. That's right? So yeah, you could sign up on our meetup page, till.bi/talkdata, and you can see our other events there as well. So aside from that, all there is to say, unless anyone's got any final parting words, all that's left to say is thank you so much for joining us. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.